Laurel Chaison with Lisa Blanchard as the host of Airing Addiction.
I share often my journey started on this campus. Got sober as a client here, just like you.
I really do see phenomenal change.
Always hope. I've seen situations that on the surface look impossible become possible.
Doing this podcast is to share those recovery stories, be honest about what the challenges are and have some real conversations, but kind of share that out on the airwaves.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this really exciting and kind of unique episode of Airing Addiction. So I'm Lisa Blanchard. It is July. If you are watching or listening live or close to it, the tail end of July. And July is often a time, right, in the summer months where we take time off to be with our loved ones and our family. And I think that is a really great opportunity for us to talk about family and relationships in marriage in the context of addiction recovery. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse to introduce our very special guest today.
Thanks so much, Lisa. It's a real honor and a privilege. I say all the time that I'm excited to have guests on, and I truly do mean it because I really do love this. I never thought that I'd be co-hosting a podcast in recovery for the place I work at. But this really is by far my favorite guest we've ever had because Laurel is a mother. She's an awesome baker. She's a very caring and loving person. And we've been married for over 11 years and have known each other for over 25 years. So she's been through it all, the good, bad, and the ugly, has her own experience with addiction and recovery, certainly has been a huge support of mine over the years. So without further ado, Laurel's going to share a little bit of her story. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Lisa. So I'm a little nervous. So if I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, that's why. So my name is Laurel Chaison. Like Jesse said, we will be married 12 years on Sunday. Yep. Okay. Yeah. It's July. So we met 25 years ago in July 2001 at a summer camp and started dating in September of 2001. And back then I was just like, oh, nice boy. We were 14, 15. First boyfriend. My family, we liked each other. We hung out with our families. Everybody got along. Everything was fine. I did not know then what I know now. Like I didn't know, what he was into and his background. I didn't know he was already drinking. I didn't know these things. I was just this innocent girl. I was introduced to a completely different lifestyle. Eventually, and I supported it because I was so in love and I was fine with, he's drunk, whatever. I would drink with him, not to the excess that he would, but I supported him. It was like teenage love. I will say, looking back now, as a teenager, I was I became very rebellious, a completely different version of myself that I was before I met him. My parents were, for very good reason, not happy with some of the decisions I was making and my behaviors. And I look back now that I'm a parent, and I can see why they were so strict and didn't want me, eventually wanted me to stop hanging out with him, and the people he was hanging out with. And I rebelled. I didn't care. I was really awful to my family at times because I was so obsessed with him. My parents my mom is probably watching, so now she knows, like, I understand now. I think she knows. I saw, let's see, Jesse basically introduced me to alcohol, introduced me to weed. I never did anything more than that. I was too afraid. That was, I was brought up in what you'd say a normal household, and I knew, what was right and what was wrong. He did too, but he just didn't listen. I'm not saying he didn't have a good child. He did. He knew what was right and what was wrong, but he rebelled. And I just became like this whole other person growing up. My high school, I did not have a good experience. The last 2 years of my high school was just rough. Didn't have many friends. Got in a lot of fights. Just, going out at night and saying that I was, with someone, with a friend when I really wasn't, or, I'm not going to get into too much detail with that because there is this stuff that I just don't need to reveal to my parents, and we're just going to leave it at that. I mean, as a parent now, I say now that when our kids are older, like I'm going to know if you're lying. Like I was there once. I'm going to know at least now what to look for. Like I know, and they're not going to get away with it like I did. I hope. I come from there's addiction, for an extended family. And I think that affected me because I learned that I was addicted to gambling. My experience with addiction was not alcohol or drugs. It was scratch tickets. I was brought to the casino for my 21st birthday, and that was my first taste of gambling. And I know that you guys usually talk about drugs and alcohol, but I'm just going to give you a taste into the gambling aspect of it because there is a program called GA, which is Gamblers Anonymous. And I am a recovering compulsive gambler. And I am about 2.5 years into not gambling, not doing scratch tickets. But we were in active addiction together. We'd be drinking, he'd be drinking and smoking, and we would stop at the store and just get like, the rolls of scratch tickets and just sit there, and the money we'd go and spend some more on scratch tickets and some more on booze and weed, and that was just like our thing. We stole, we just made all the wrong choices. I hurt people that I love. He hurt people that he loved, including me, even though I was still there. Like I was the worst example of an enabler. Back then I was like, oh no, he's a great guy. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who's an addict, it is so, so hard to just back off and realize when to walk away. I did not want to walk away. I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want to think of, I more so worried. It wasn't like, oh, is he going to go, be with someone else? It's more of, oh my gosh, is he going to get hurt? Is he going to do something to hurt somebody or himself? He did have those moments. I had gotten those phone calls where, we tried to break up and I tried to step away, and then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And I would get sucked right back in because I didn't want him to get hurt. I had my first experience with visiting jails with him. I never thought I'd visit a jail. Like I would never, like before I met him, what? I'm going to go to a jail. It was really awkward. It was really weird. It's kind of scary because you just see how they are on the inside. And he did that a few times. And the last time that he did that was in 2009. And I didn't know where he went out to do his thing, and he didn't come back. And I finally got a phone call in the middle of the night, and he's like, I'm at the police station. Okay, well, I'll come get you. What's your bail? No, there's no bail. I'm not getting out this time. And that was it. That's when he got forced into recovery, basically. I think that's when he got forced into sobriety. That was over 16 years ago, which is amazing. I mean, I couldn't be more proud, honestly. I will say that our story has a happy ending. I'm not going to sit here and say that, if you stay and you support your addict and you enable and whatever, that you will get your happy ending. More often than not, it's not a happy ending. I just got very, very lucky and blessed to be able to sit here and see the transformation happen in real time, which honestly has been frustrating and an honor in itself. I mean, I like to say every time he gets another degree, okay, because we all know that we all know it was an associate's, then it was the bachelor's, and then it was a master's, and we all know he wants his PhD. And every time he gets a degree, I like to joke and say with him, like, you used to be such an a-hole. I don't want to swear. You used to be such an asshole. And it's just like, he was. He was an asshole. He was. Like, what? I can't, I look at the old pictures of us and I'm like, oh my gosh, he was such a punk. I will say my mom was probably almost as much of an enabler as me. She is such a caring woman and just wanted to help, always wanted to help, you know. My other family, my dad and my brother wanted nothing to do with him, rightfully so. They were very protective of me and they just did not want him near me. I mean, there was many instances where like he almost fought my dad. Like my dad did not want him, and I know that he would do that if our daughters came home with someone like he was. He would be the first to be like, get out of my house. But today, like we have such a good relationship, and it's still so crazy to see, like getting married, having 3 kids, just seeing the relationship that him and my dad and my brother have. Obviously my mom was there in real time too, to see the changes, and just still, we can't believe it to this day. It's very, very, I mean, hard isn't even the word. There is no word to describe what it feels like to have to like sit with this and put up with it and just be in this. I was just like I don't even know. I don't want to like say it, but like I was messed up clearly because I was still supporting somebody who was actively just throwing his life away. I feel like people are like, why, you see the comments on Facebook and stuff like that. Well, leave him, people complaining and saying, my boyfriend is drinking and he's being such a jerk and you need to leave him. He's never going to change. And I just sit there and look at that. Like, I can't respond to this because I should have left. I should have left multiple times, but I didn't. And I just got very lucky that, thank you to the policeman who arrested him that night, because they forced him to make a change. And, I was in and out of GA, and I know he had heard of AA, but he had never been to AA before his last time in jail. But like my addiction, same thing, back and forth. I just wanted the quick fix, and I wanted a quick couple bucks, and I would scrounge up change. I would steal from family, and even just quarters, go and be able to get a $2 scratch ticket and pray that I would win, $100 or something. And then that would go to him for his booze or his jail canteen. I would go and I would steal to give jail canteen. That, like, I was like the worst enabler ever. I turned into like a female version of him as far as like the stealing and whatnot goes, to just be able to help him, be comfy in jail, which no, I shouldn't have helped at all. I should have made him sit there and suffer. But the enabling continued through jail until he found Spectrum. And again, that was me and my craziness, calling Spectrum and being like, hello, he needs a bed, get him in. Like, I harassed Spectrum to get him in, and he did. And he got in. And even then, I was there when you got dropped off, and Kathy was like, no, you can't see him yet. And I'm like, the hell, I can't. Let me in. Like, I haven't like hugged him in forever. And yeah, you just like, the Spectrum is, I am forever grateful to Spectrum. Like, I mean, they helped you so much. You were able to get your own place and get your get well job. And then I remember when he was working for Jeremiah's Inn and came home and said that Spectrum had offered him a job. And he started crying because he was like, what? I'm going to go work for the place that saved my life. And you've been with them since. And I remember that and being like, go, take it. Like, why are you even asking me if you should take it? Take it. And it's been the best thing to happen. And it's just the people that we've met, the friends that we've made. I mean, if anybody, I've seen people, we still to this day have people say, oh, you go to the AA thing, like you need me, just no, like AA, the people that we've met, the lifelong friends that we've made, the people that we've lost, we've seen who didn't, stick with the program and just went back out there, and we've lost a lot of friends. Never thought at my age that I would like go to that many like wakes or, it's really, that's another like whole other side of life I thought I'd never see. But being married to somebody who is in program, you see these things, you hear these things. But I will say, grateful to Spectrum, grateful to AA, because like I mean, I know the steps because of GA, but like he's like, I call him Mr. AA because like he's the people that he's even helping. We have lifelong friends now that he's been helping that like are here because of him, and I like to say and God, but whoever your higher power is. But people roll their eyes and say, oh, the AA thing. No, if you've been thinking about going to an AA meeting, go. Nobody's going to force you to talk. You can sit in the back row with your head down and just listen. All you need is your ears and the desire to stop drinking. That's all I can say is people, whatever addiction you have, there is an anonymous program for it. It's even if it's just online, like the GA meetings are online for me because there's not many locally. So it's easy for me to jump onto a Zoom and just listen. I don't even have to put my camera on. I can just be quiet and listen if I need to. But AA is everywhere. There's like, you can find a meeting anywhere. AA, NA. All I can say is just, I could talk all day about the experiences and the things that have happened to us. But from the other side of things, I can't sit here and be like, it's hard for me to tell somebody to walk away and leave their addict. I can say if there's abuse, you got to step back. I'm not saying that you. I don't want to promote abuse. I don't want to say we're an anomaly. We have to say we're an anomaly because like things could have been much worse. But I was a teenager and I didn't know any better, and I stuck by. I don't know. I think he'd be dead today if I had walked away and never turned back. And I don't think it would have been because of me. I think it would have been because of his addictions. I don't think no one else was supporting him. Even in active addiction, I was supporting him, but nobody else was there for him. His friends didn't care. His friends, they weren't really his friends. So I can't, I could sit here and say if you have an addict, if you're in a relationship with an addict or you're married to an addict, seek the help. You don't have to immediately run away, but go to an AA meeting yourself and say, hey, I think people can do that. I think a spouse can walk into an AA meeting and say, my spouse needs help. I don't know what to do. Help me. And they'll give you information, and I'm sure they could even jump onto an AA Zoom meeting and just listen. But they need to know that somebody's there. So there are people just like them that care, that have been where they are, and nothing will surprise them. So, that's all I can say is just get the help. And recovery is so possible. Like and he doesn't like when I say, oh, you're about to be so many years sober, blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, on the 11th hill of 17 years sober. And that's insane. That's like.
So I have 16 right now.
Getting
One day
closer.
at a time.
One day at a time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You just go on and on. I don't care. If I miss something, ask me.
It was hard for me to bite my tongue because there
You
was
did a great job, Jesse.
that it brought up, and
Get to your face. I'm like,
and I wanted to reflect on, and I guess I'll just go here first that it brought me back. It brought me back to those years of just like my mindset was completely different. It was so selfish. It was so self-centered. It was so much about just what I wanted to get and just use people for a means to an end. And yeah, Laurel's right. She got introduced to a world that, she wasn't really aware of. And, her mom as well. Like, I think of her mom, you guys were the only two that showed up to my Spectrum graduation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And just all the history there, and yeah, forever grateful. And yeah, I don't know. You can ask the first question, Lisa.
Yeah. So
I'll just keep rambling.
I think we talked a lot about kind of what that path, which we know Jesse's story. If folks haven't listened, Jesse shares his entire story on his own podcast before he was the co-host. And so, we can certainly try to link that, and folks can listen to Jesse's perspective on that. But I think it was really helpful to hear your perspective, Laurel. And so I want to stick with a minute, like what that was like going through that piece. And then I'd love to talk a little bit more about your own recovery experience. And then I'd love to talk about kind of the shared recovery and what it's like to support each other in recovery, right? And long-term recovery. So I think those are kind of the phases I'd like to go a bit through, if that's okay with you, Jesse. But a couple of things. One, I just want to start off with just a moment to ask you to give yourself a little more self-compassion, Laurel. And I think we all need that. So, Jesse being now one of our trainers and facilitators of our Fast Magnolia groups, but we've had Maureen Kavanagh on a couple of times. And, I think when you were talking about your own experience and like how you would behave and how it would mirror, Jesse's behavior, and like, how could you do this? And like, yes, there's some of that rebellious teen and our brains aren't developed, and all of that is true. And the other parts are true, is that we've learned, and Maureen introduced us to some of this science, that the loved ones that are supporting someone or trying to support someone, the impact on their brain, right? It's really very similar to the impact on our brains from trauma. But that impact on our brains really starts to match what's happening for our loved one, right? So urges and cravings to make sure they're okay, urges and cravings to make sure he was just a little more comfortable in jail, right? Like you can sleep tonight if he has enough in his canteen, like that we really mirror that. And that's real kind of brain science, wired for the reasons why we need each other, right? So there's just a lot of compassion for you in that process, and for anyone listening that has been through something similar or is going through it right now. There's nothing wrong with you. It makes sense that this is hard. It makes sense that you're doing this roller coaster ride yourself. So I think you described it really, really well. And, I'd be interesting to think a little bit about what that impact of kind of walking that path with Jesse was on actually impacting your susceptibility towards gambling addiction, right? Because you're kind of already on that like reward, like fear kind of path that comes with addiction, and then you layer on kind of the habits that started around scratch tickets early on, and then we'll change the scratch tickets into more scratch tickets and into alcohol, and like splitting that out, right? And it's that kind of that brain part of addiction that we know really well, that there's so much similarity. And I think that people don't talk about it enough, that there's lots of kinds of addictions out there, right? It's not just substances, and they can be just as powerful, right? They share, this probably better than I do from all the work that you've done to get to where you are today, right? But there is that neurobiological kind of overlap. It looks very similar to addiction because we know it's a brain disease, right? We know that that it impacts our reward pathways. And so I think that's a really, I appreciate you sharing that and sharing kind of what it was like to go through that path with Jesse, because I wonder if they're a bit linked there in some ways. I wonder if you guys have any thoughts about that.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think you brought out my addiction. I don't know that I would have ever been, or if it would have taken me longer to get into gambling if I hadn't already known what an addictive lifestyle looked like.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that, but like we would go to I went to Mohegan for my 21st, and then because I went for my 21st, Mohegan sent me a free night. So for his 21st, 2 months later, we went to Mohegan and we got wasted.
Yeah.
And went into the slots. And that was like, at that picture of you in the parking lot, like, hey, and he's just like, oh, like you can see it on his face. And the pictures are awful. It's just, it's just, I think that might have been like where it really started.
Just the normalization of high risk situations, like, normal drinking, whatever that looks like, for someone without an alcohol use disorder, your 21st birthday, maybe you go out and you have a drink, or maybe you don't even do it on your birthday. Maybe you have a glass of wine with dinner if that's your family tradition. And I remember before Mohegan, we went to Good Times in Somerville. Shout out Good Times, no longer there. And I had 2 pitchers of beer for my first legal drink, and got sick on the way to Mohegan and had to pull over.
Yep.
So there was just this normalization of like, oh, it's what you do when you're 21, but is it really? Is it, No, it's not.
It's not.
So, from my perspective, of course, like I think that, they were linked, they were related. It was so codependent. It was so unhealthy. It was so just desperate is the word that comes to mind for me, where, we had each other and we couldn't see past each other. So we just trauma bonded together and did the best we could with what we had. And we had like negative coping skills. So it looked like gambling and alcohol and drugs. And
I think back now, like, how did we survive some of these situations? Like, are you kidding me? I think back now, like, how? Like, I even joke with my friends, like, we talk about like things we used to do, and it's like, how are we even alive right now? Like, I don't get it. Like the times that he would drive and under the influence, and it's like, how did we not die? It just obviously God was watching over us, but like, geez, I think of my kids ever. Just like, what is wrong with you? Snap out of it. Come on, that's not normal. That's not normal. It's just.
And maybe at some point, we can touch on how we talk to our kids about addiction, even at a young age. But to summarize that, certainly I agree, Lisa, that, having active addiction on both sides of a relationship, no matter what, very toxic, and no matter what type of addiction, substances, process addiction, you name it, certainly enabling each other just contributes to the overall negative outcome.
That's really, it just speaks a little bit more to kind of the emotional distress that drives our behavior, right? Like we know that, like that, and the intensity with which our first relationship is, right? That is just true for everyone, right? I'm a mom of teenagers, like I know what this looks like, right? And like the intensity of that kind of first relationship, it feels bigger than anything in the whole world. And then you start to add in a bit more of that roller coaster. And you described really, really well that part of why you stayed was so that he would be okay. Right. And so that's a lot for our brains to take on at a young age. It's a lot for us to manage. It's a lot for any of us to manage, right? When we're supporting a loved one. And then anything that will make you feel better in the moment, right? And whether that's behaviors that like, you say you would never do to support your loved one, right? Or behaviors like things like getting more scratch tickets or whatever that might be, right? Like, and we all have those kinds of responses because that's just how the things that happen to us impact our behavior, right? That's what happens. And So again, just, inserting some more self-compassion, being the therapist in the room for that, right? But I also want to say too, and because I'd love to get to kind of that kind of recovery process, because yes, a lot of emotional distress and things, a lot of wounding and things happen in the context of relationship that harm us. But really, the only way to heal is also in the context of relationship. And it seems like that is why you are both sitting here right now, because together you moved through that healing process, right? So I'd love for you both to talk about kind of what that experience of having the other one there, for your own the recovery journey, your own healing has been like.
So I would say that when I first discovered GA, I believe he was actually in jail, because I got caught. I got caught by family stealing for money for scratch tickets. And I came clean. It was a very emotional situation. It was the first time like I admitted I had a problem. I remember my mom took me to a meeting. And I discovered a really great group of people. It was back when I was living out in Medford, and I met a really great group of people that supported me and helped me through. Got through my first year. It was a big deal. I had some family come to my year meeting, and but I think I maybe made it 2 years and then fell off again, because I'm pretty sure it was me trying to get money to help us do stuff. Like, it was so easy to jump back in, and all I had to do was, hit $100 once, and that was like click, and I was back at it again. Obviously that didn't happen often. But I will say, when he went to Spectrum and started working through his very early recovery, I started kind of like paying attention and seeing what he was doing. And not even with GA, I was just like seeing him change and realizing, okay, these are good things. Like, I can do this. I can, like you said, we play off of each other. Well, now that things were starting to go good for him, it was kind of like clicking in my mind that, things could be good. We did have to split up there a little bit for 6 months, because his first sponsor was like, you need to work on yourself. You need to end it. I was pissed. I was like, are you kidding me? All the support I've given him, helped get him into Spectrum and been there for him. And this guy's telling you to like walk away from me and take a few months off and try, granted, he did come back. Like, we did get back together. Obviously, have been together ever since. But I just saw the change. He found AA. He found God, probably for the first time fully in his life. I mean, grew up in church, but like, and found a church family. And it took a while for him to convince me to go to church. And in church, there were people in recovery. It was a recovery church. I like to say it's a recovery church. There's a lot of people in recovery there, because people from the church would go to Spectrum and sing and pray and, talk with the residents. And so I think that, I've in and out of GA, I think 3 times. I think this is my 3rd time. I have no plans of leaving this time. Things are a lot different once you have a family. It kind of puts more things into perspective. I really wouldn't ruin that for anything. It was easier for me, it was easier to relapse when I was single or just dating. Children play a huge factor in decision making for me personally. But I think the change in Jesse motivated me to make better decisions, because this is like the walking miracle right here. And that just kind of like, I say that all the time to people. It's a walking miracle. This is just, you don't even, I've told people at work about what it used to be like, and they're like, no, he's the nicest guy. What are you talking about? None of them believe like anything that I say about the past version of him. So I think the change in you helped motivate a change in me, because I'm not, although he's very much involved with AA and gives his time in AA with with volunteering and whatnot, I'm not anywhere near involved in GA that way. I do jump on a Zoom meeting and listen when I feel I need it. It is a great program for those struggling. But I know well enough to jump on and listen to a meeting if I feel like I'm struggling. But I also have been to AA meetings with him and have listened in on those, and I feel like I'm living in an AA household. So it's like, I don't know, it's helpful. It's helpful having, it's helpful being married to Mr. AA here. He's knowledgeable. Okay.
From my perspective,
Okay.
I have to think back to being in Spectrum and my clinician inviting Laurel in for a family session. So shout out Jessica Crott, wherever you are. I've been trying to get a hold of you for 16 years. Love to talk to you and say thank you. If you want to come on, come on. But I don't know if you remember that down in the basement of the old RP in those little closet, little closet offices. She invited, I forget all how it happened, but we were sitting in there talking about relationships and recovery. And yeah, that was around the time where my sponsor at the time was like, well, why don't you just focus on you? And, that was really the first time that I thought about like a long-term future in recovery in a relationship. And it was overwhelming, but it was a little bit hopeful that it was possible, because here we are talking to somebody who, is knowledgeable in this. And I don't think we had been in counseling prior to that. We've been in counseling since, both individual and couples counseling for years. And I certainly credit that with, helping change those, what we know today as maladaptive coping skills, but back then just whatever we had to do to get by, and being on the other side of supporting somebody else in recovery. Like, I don't know where you came up with it, but you called scratch tickets cardboard crack. And
someone GA told me about it.
I figure as much. And it just helps me put into perspective today. Like, I have friends that can't drink, can't use drugs, and can't gamble. And it normalizes it for me, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's my wife too. Like, she doesn't, she can drink in safety, she doesn't do drugs, but yeah, gambling's a problem too. So it helped open my eyes to like other addictions besides what I was going through.
So what has it been like for you to support Laurel in that process?
Interesting, because there were times, like she had said, where, she had fell off, and, as somebody in recovery, I'd find scratch tickets somewhere.
You can't hide it from them.
And being real, I'd get pissed. What the hell? Rightfully so. And not that like I compare one's better, one's worse or whatnot, but then I think of like, I'd be a hypocrite if I really came down on Laura, like, what are you doing? Can't you understand? Don't you know better? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, all those words would bounce off her and come back onto me. So it really comes down to compassion and working toward a solution together. So, whether that's the, online GA or, something we haven't brought up here yet, but like, we're both very involved in church family and have been for the majority of our recovery and our marriage together. Like, that recovery church that came into Spectrum, that guy ended up marrying us. Like, he was the pastor at our wedding, and we still hang out and shout out Vineyard. Just like lifelong relationships there. Right. And then, we move around a bunch and we try to find something that fits, and we do. And, through just the trials and tribulations of life, we end up out in Central Mass. And I think, what did you say? It was like 5 years ago last week?
6 years
ago. 6 years ago.
Week, I made the post on Facebook asking for a list of local churches.
Yeah. Just like, hey, new to the area, and Chair City Church in Gardner, Mass. just like a welcoming, loving community. No judgment. Just, I say all the time, like, 12-step recovery often happens in churches just for the practical reason that it's like cheap rent. And if you rented a hall at like the Eagles or, Knights of Columbus for 100 people once a week, it'd cost you a lot more. But, my experience is any type of recovery mutual aid meeting dovetails into whatever I hear in church basements, I also hear on Sunday morning in church, and it plays off of each other. And maybe a future guest certainly that can speak more to that later is our current pastor, who is spearheading a Christian 12-step recovery group that's soon to be launched. So, and a counseling center. So just, lots of connection. Like, we know the opposite of addiction is connection. And, I think we can sit here and safely say that, connection to other people, whether it be in recovery, whether it be, in shared spiritual beliefs, or even like, I think your friend that you worked with years ago at Panera Bread, or, Laurel makes friends with people that she works with, and they become lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Like, just invited to family functions, like haven't worked with either of the Amandas in 10 years? And
More than 10 years. Yeah, but we still talk.
And like, just to connect. And you were in Amanda's wedding, and just connecting with people and doing life together. I mean,
You can be friends with everybody.
That's really where I think is, the difference for us from two people who were so isolated and selfish. And certainly, I hear Lisa's voice in my mind talking about compassion, but, shame and guilt, right? Two people that I know, I can just speak for me, were just polluted with shame and guilt and feeling less than, and then finding a solution and, wanting to, help make friends and also do life together. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I love that you talk about like that. There's that together, right? That it's really like it gets really isolating when you're going through addiction in early recovery, and that it sounds like you both really do a good job of having a lot of others, right, separate from each other that are supporting. And I think, it makes me think of Esther Perel. I don't know if you know her, Jesse. She's a great clinician, trained right here in Massachusetts. But she describes really well in relationship the fact that, in this individualistic society, we get really like isolated and think that like the person that we marry has to be everything to us. And that we've lost that concept of like, we need lots of people, right? We need the village. Like we need it can't just be that one person, and that burden is too big. And, it makes me think a bit about how you probably have gotten this far together because you're taking care of each other together, but also you're taking care of yourselves separately with your own village.
Yeah. What are you doing today? What are we doing today?
What, going to the airport?
Yeah.
I'm flying to Virginia this afternoon.
Why?
What? Because my parents?
Yeah.
My parents are flying me to Virginia to join in on my father's U.S. Navy reunion that they do every year. But this year is special because we get to go on the actual ship that my dad was on in the 70s. So that but I'm going alone. So Jesse's staying home with the children, and this is something I'm doing on my own. And I said to him this morning, when was the last time that I went on like a little mini vacation with just my parents and my brother? I don't know, but it's going to be really cool, like spending time just with them, and getting that time together and seeing some of their friends that I haven't seen in a really long time too, So it's things you get to do today that,
To your point of having your others, right?
Others,
and even though they're family and we're all, very, very close, we spend a lot of time together, but also having that dedicated time to them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that brings me to kind of one of the questions that I have for you both. Because I know Jesse and I know how much he does. I know how much he does at work. I know he does this podcast. I know he sponsors a lot of folks. I know he's super engaged in his recovery community. That takes a lot of time. So how do you balance that? You've got 3 little ones, right? Jesse's on his millionth degree, as we've already discussed, right? Like that, all of those things that are really wonderful, but they take a lot of time, and balancing the ability for each other to do those kinds of things while taking care of 3 small kids. How do you balance that?
It's a lot. I'm very blessed that I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. I started staying home 2 months before our first daughter was born, and that was 10 years ago this month when I was able to stay home. I only recently, in the last few years, went back to work part-time. But I'm very blessed that my parents live so close, just a few towns over. So I have kind of like my built-in babysitters to be able to watch the kids so that we can both get our work done and what we need to get done. But we know when we haven't spent enough time just us together, we can feel it. We can know we start to get frustrated, and we know we have to pause and say, okay, we need to plan something. We need to, plan some time just us, or we need to suck up the energy to stay up late at night and watch a show together, or just talk or whatever. Because it's by the end, most days, by the end of the day, we're both like, okay, we're tired. I'm going to bed. That's it. I feel like an old person. I just want to go to bed. Recently we just went out to dinner, just the 2 of us. I said to my mom, we need a date night. It's important. We need to go out. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. It had been too long. We make time to go out on double dates with our friends, but we also at the same time make sure that we both take individual time, either if we're by ourselves or with friends. I just planned to go out in a few weeks with some of my girlfriends for my birthday, just to go out for dinner, just to hang out. I don't do that very often, but it's needed. He's got certain nights during the week that he will go to a meeting and then hang out with some of his friends after. And I'm fully support, go, you need that time with your friends. It refreshes him. He goes back, he's in a good mood, and it's just he needs that. We make time to do things as family too. We just talked about going to a concert with the kids, a Christian concert that we know that they'll enjoy and that we can all enjoy together. It's, life does get crazy. 3 kids is a lot. Wouldn't change it for anything, but it's a lot. And we try to involve them in as much as we can, and just be intentional about the time that we spend together. The word intentional. We try not to work on the weekends. There is that rare times where I may have to work or he may have to do something, but we try to keep our weekends free for the most part. Yeah. Yeah.
And, long ago, for me at least, I learned that balance is a fallacy, meaning that I'm never going to find perfect balance. Different seasons of life, I'm focused on different things. Certainly, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to pursue educational goals or career goals had Laurel not made the decision to stay at home and be the primary caretaker of the children during the day. And that was a lot in different seasons. And I remember not too long ago in grad school, one summer we were going to Hershey Park in Pennsylvania, and I had a group project due, and I had all my group members really upset with me because I refused to work on that project while we were on vacation. I said, I'll see you when we get back. And the project was fine and it all worked out. But, just having that flexibility where, different seasons of life focus on different things. Lately, it's been this Christian 12-step recovery group and really getting that off the ground. And, then the next thing will be the next thing. And, but just flexibility, I guess. And to just on a practical note, if it's not in the calendar, it's not happening. So
Yeah.
sharing a calendar with each other and putting it in there.
If we forget to add something to the calendar, I have this, it's not in the calendar. Well, it's happening. I forgot to put it in. We've had that happen recently where we both forgot to update the calendar.
But for the most part, knowing each other's schedules or routines, or like she said, certain nights or certain things.
Also, know when to say no.
Yeah.
That's something we're working on. And I've told him, because he is a people pleaser. I'm a people pleaser. When someone asks you if you can do something, you need to know when to say no. It's okay. You're not going to you can't sit there and think that you're going to hurt someone's feelings if you say no, you can't help. But you need to know when to just take a step back and be like, how full is my plate? How full is my cup already? Can I really squeeze in one other thing? No, you need to know when to say, I can't today, maybe another time, but just not today, because some days we're so full of things to do. And, you got to be able to step back and say, I really don't need to do that right now. I'd love to help, but I can't. There's other people that can help.
The knowledge that no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
Right. That we don't need to explain why. Just it is what it is. There's only a finite amount of hours in the day. And, as much as we are talking about community and spending time together and doing life together, I look forward to the 1 or 2 nights a week where I come home from work and I don't leave the house till the next day. And we just hang. And it can be, something intentional. It can be something like a big project, or it could be just chilling out, watching a movie.
Yeah.
Right. So finding that ebb and flow of the balance, depending on what season of life we're in, has been helpful.
And it's a good lesson that too many of us in helping professions don't listen to. We don't always practice what we preach, right? And so as a therapist, as a sponsor, as all of the hats that you wear, right? That, I'm sure you tell people all the time to do this, right? And it's practicing it yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes disappointing someone.
Yeah. And just transparently, I feel a little guilty right now, not practicing what I preach. I'm not working today. This is the day off because I'm bringing her to the airport. But it just worked out that,
I'm like, oh, we can do this in the
that
that didn't come up in the emails when we were scheduling this.
I didn't talk about intentional time. I felt very led to do this together in the same room. I've never done one together, since I've jumped on co-hosting with you. So, it worked out. We knew that we were going to do this and then, take her to the airport. And then, the rest of the weekend is dedicated to me and the kids and her with her family.
A fun parent over here with the list of things he's going to do. These kids are going to be, I'm going to come home and they're going to be like, Daddy did this. Okay.
Highly scheduled, I'm sure.
Full of fun. So
one less thing for me to worry about.
Yeah.
They're fine.
They're fine.
Yeah. Is there anything that you both wanted to get to that we didn't talk about today?
Actually, just speaking of children, our kids are young, all under 10.
Almost.
And almost, but still under 10 for a few more months. So, having age appropriate conversations with children about recovery and about addiction and about, just the way that we've come on here and talked about living our lives, for a long time. I would tell our kids that, Daddy goes to meetings to talk to his friends about God. And that's where I left it. And then recently, actually this year at a anniversary recovery event, we were all sitting around eating there and at the dinner. And, we just felt like it was time to be like, Daddy's an alcoholic and a drug addict in recovery. And that's what this looks like. And they, in their own way, were able to process that a little bit more. And, when appropriate, bringing the kids to a recovery event, bringing the kids, whether it be a meeting or, even just hanging out in the backyard with some people in recovery, having a barbecue. We do that all the time.
My favorite get-togethers are the cookouts that we have with the people in recovery.
Yeah.
I love all my friends, but there's something special to be said about a backyard full of just people who have made the right choice and are just trying to live their best life. And
Right.
it's really
There's an
special.
energy there. I say
Yeah.
the podcast about a million
Definitely.
times. Jesse's probably real familiar with it, right? I myself am not in recovery, but there is an energy that individuals in recovery give off, and it's because of the work that it takes to get there, right? And the work that you have to do internally. That I say all the time. The rest of us don't necessarily have to look at that stuff in order to survive. And folks in long-term recovery have to look at it every day in order to survive, and it gives off a very different energy. So that makes a lot of sense that those barbecues are one of your favorite times, because it's a lot of concentrated, wonderful recovery energy. Same feeling you get when you walk into a meeting, same feeling you get when you walk into a peer recovery center, right? For sure. Like you get that same feeling. I've never left one of our peer recovery support centers in a bad mood.
Yeah. Likewise. And I've said on here before, and I'll say it again, that when I was a resident at Spectrum RP and going to the Recovery Connection in Marlboro, it was a big deal because of that energy, because of that, we could have just went there to play ping pong and hang out, but there was something special about it. So I could go on, but is there anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't?
No, I think we covered it. And like you said, we could talk for ages and just go on and on, like a long goodbye, we like to say. Or so Jesse, land the plane. Just talk. Yeah.
Well, this has been a real treat for me. I'm sure it has been for everybody listening, with so much appreciation for you, Jesse, as my co-host of all these years, and especially to you, Laurel, for coming on and sharing, more of your story. And I think we need more of these kind of bigger, vulnerable stories about how addiction and recovery doesn't just impact the person. We spend a lot of time with a lot of people in recovery. And I think it's really important to spread that lens just a bit more, because nobody's doing this alone.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for
you.
sharing. And this has been a special one for sure. So.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been so fantastic. We'll be back with another episode in August, and we are prepping and getting ready for our big month of the year, which is September Recovery Month, where we will come back with weekly podcasts. So please, do all the things, like, subscribe, so you don't miss anything. But thank you so much for being here with us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you both.